August 23, 2025, a date that will forever be etched in the minds of those following the twisted case of Emmanuel Haro. What began as a desperate search for a missing 7-month-old baby quickly spiraled into a nightmare of lies, betrayal, and 2 deaths linked to the same house. What happened to baby Emmanuel? How did a seemingly tragic kidnapping turn into something far darker? Tonight, we dive deep into the chilling details, the unanswered questions, and the shocking truths that authorities and the public have been desperately trying to piece together. Emmanuel Haro's body still hasn't been found, but new evidence has surfaced, connecting the mystery to a tragic pattern, another death in the same house. Was this all a terrible coincidence, or is there something even more sinister at play? Hold on tight, because this story is far from over. Let's rewind.
I laid him down and so I could get his diapers ready, and somebody said, "Hola," and that's all I remember. And I saw white, and hearing sound, I fell on the floor. And I said, as I got up, I couldn't find my son. I checked all around my truck.
Whoever took our son, please.
To August 14, 2025, the day that began with a mother's tearful plea for help. Rebecca Haro, mother of baby Emmanuel, told authorities her son was taken from her in broad daylight, in a quiet parking lot in Ukipa. But as the days passed, cracks began to appear in her story. What started as a simple search for a missing baby began to uncover a much darker and more twisted reality. As the investigation into Emmanuel's disappearance intensified, the most chilling detail emerged: blood-soaked carpets at the Haro home. No kidnapping, no suspects, just unanswered questions. Authorities quickly arrested both Jake and Rebecca Haro for the murder of their child. But the shocking truth was Emmanuel's body was still nowhere to be found. How did it all come to this? How did parents who once pleaded for their child's safe return end up behind bars for his murder? But the story doesn't end there. This case is only becoming more chilling. A chilling twist: Jake Haro's brother, Hector Haro, also died in the same house in 2021. At first, authorities labeled Hector's death an overdose or self-harm, but rumors of foul play soon spread. Why was Hector in the Haro home that night? And could his death hold the key to unraveling the truth behind baby Emmanuel's tragic end? Hector's death, mysterious and unresolved, sets a grim pattern. 2 deaths in the same house, one after the other. Could there be more to this than we've been told? We dive deeper into the investigation to uncover the chilling connections. Detectives uncovered more than just blood in the Haro home. They found evidence that seemed to suggest something far more sinister than a simple disappearance. Was Emmanuel's body hidden? Was there a deliberate cover-up? Authorities scoured new locations, including a lead involving the sanctuary church. But still, the body remains missing. And just when we thought we might have an answer, the search for Emmanuel's body took a new turn. Thanks to relentless investigative work from social media users and online detectives, the sanctuary church became a focal point in the search. Could this be where Emmanuel's body is hidden? And why did Jake and Rebecca seem to be covering their tracks? In the age of social media, nothing stays hidden for long. From TikTok users to anonymous tips, the world watched as the case unfolded. But could online detectives have uncovered vital clues? Could the real story be buried deeper than anyone realized? Ahmed Bello, a TikTok user, found a key lead near the sanctuary church in Ukipa. His footage led authorities to new evidence. But did it bring them closer to the truth? Or was it all just another false lead? Final segment leading into legal and emotional battles. As Jake and Rebecca Haro sit behind bars, the fight for justice continues. Courtrooms will be the battleground for what really happened to Emmanuel. And while the parents' stories seem to fall apart, the community remains divided. This case is about more than just one child. It's about 2 families. The dark secrets they may be hiding and the innocent lives lost. What will it take to uncover the truth? And will the Haro family ever find peace? The search for Emmanuel continues, but with each passing day, the mystery deepens. What happened to Emmanuel Haro, and how many secrets are buried in the walls of the Haro home? If you have any information, you must come forward. The truth is out there, but it won't come to light unless the community steps up. If you know anything, call the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department or submit a tip to Crime Stoppers. The justice for baby Emmanuel depends on you. Asterisk. As the investigation into Emmanuel's disappearance continues, it's clear that the truth is more complex and horrifying than anyone could have imagined. The Haro home, once a place of family and love, has now become a house of horrors, with evidence pointing to something far more sinister than a simple tragedy. Authorities have found blood-soaked carpets, erased evidence, and chilling patterns, suggesting that the deaths of two members of the Haro family, Emmanuel and Hector, are connected. On the surface, it seemed like Hector's death was nothing more than a tragic overdose or possible self-harm. But now, the questions are mounting. Why was Hector at the Haro home? What really happened to him? Why didn't anyone take a closer look before? Theories, rumors, and hidden motives. Was Hector's death a coincidence? Hector Haro's sudden and unexplained death in 2021 now feels like a prelude to the tragedy that followed. No autopsy results were made public, and suspicions have lingered. The rumors swirling around Hector's death are unsettling. Was it an overdose, or did something far darker take place? Was this another tragic mistake or a carefully covered-up crime? We know Hector wasn't even living in Cabazons. Why was he there on that night? Could his death, like Emmanuel's, have been a part of a larger, more terrifying plan? Or was Hector's tragic passing just a piece of the puzzle that no one wanted to face? New leads, new hope. The Sanctuary Church and the TikTok investigation. In a story full of twists, the latest lead came not from police, but from the relentless pursuit of online detectives. A TikTok user named Ahmed Bello uncovered crucial information that led investigators to the Sanctuary Church in Ukipa. What seemed like an ordinary tip-off became a game-changer. Could this be the missing link in the search for Emmanuel's body? Ahmed's footage from Ukipa shows Rebecca and Jake Haro acting suspiciously, driving up and down 5th Street late at night, pushing a black stroller through the church grounds. What were they doing there, and why was the church of all places a focal point of their suspicious behavior? Could Emmanuel's remains be hidden there, in a small hole on the property, near the trees and the fence line? As authorities swarm the area, they uncover fresh dirt and a makeshift cross, further deepening the mystery. Could this be where baby Emmanuel's life was tragically snuffed out? As the investigation drags on, the pain of the community is palpable. Dozens gathered at vigils hoping for a miracle, but fearing the worst. Emmanuel's name is now etched in the hearts of those who never knew him, each of them grieving for the life that was stolen too soon. The family's desperation grows with every unanswered question. Every parent watching this case feels the weight of what happened to baby Emmanuel. It's impossible not to imagine the unimaginable, a life filled with potential, lost before it could even begin. And yet, with every piece of evidence uncovered, we are left with more questions. How could this happen? Why didn't anyone stop it? Jake and Rebecca Haro's arrest for the murder of their child has sent shockwaves through the community. With both parents now in custody, the case enters a critical stage 1 that will not only determine their fate, but also seek justice for baby Emmanuel. As more details emerge, will the truth finally come to light? Or will this case remain shrouded in mystery? Jake's criminal history, his past involvement in the horrific abuse of his previous child, now casts a shadow over everything. How did authorities miss the warning signs? Why were these children left to grow up in such a dangerous environment? As the wheels of justice turn, the truth may not come quickly. But it's clear, this is just the beginning. This story is not just about one baby. It's about the failure of systems meant to protect children, about the hidden dangers that lie beneath the surface. It's about the power of the community to demand answers and to stand up for the innocent lives who can't speak for themselves. Can we uncover the truth? Can we get justice for Emmanuel? If you know anything, now is the time to speak up. Your voice could be the key to bringing Emmanuel home or bringing justice to his memory. We must stand together to fight for what's right. Asterisk, if you have any information, no matter how small, please reach out to the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-78-CRIME. Your tips could help solve this tragic case. The search for Emmanuel continues, and so does the fight for justice. We won't stop until the truth is known. Asterisk, the search for baby Emmanuel may be far from over, but with each new lead, we get closer to understanding what happened. As we continue to seek justice for Emmanuel, let's keep the conversation alive and spread the word. His story deserves to be heard, and so do the voices of those who loved him. As authorities continue their investigation into the disappearance and presumed death of baby Emmanuel Haro, the search for answers is far from over. The shocking revelations of blood-soaked carpets, erased evidence, and the eerie connection to Hector's mysterious death have left us with more questions than ever before. The question everyone is asking, how deep does this cover-up go? Could the deaths of both Emmanuel and Hector be part of a larger, chilling pattern? As detectives examine new leads, the search for justice grows even more urgent. Every step they take is filled with hope and fear, and every lead brings us closer or farther from the truth. In the wake of tragedy, the community of Cabazon and surrounding areas has been rocked to its core. Parents and residents whose hearts break for baby Emmanuel now seek the truth. Many have gathered in vigils, holding out hope for answers, but also fearing what those answers might reveal. But as emotional as the vigils have been, the question remains, how did we get here? How did a child's innocent life spiral into a case so twisted that it involves not one, but two unexplained deaths in the same home? The emotional toll on the community is undeniable. People want justice, and they want answers. Jake and Rebecca Haro's actions after Emmanuel's disappearance have only fueled suspicions. The parents, who once begged for their son's safe return, are now the prime suspects in a murder investigation. What once seemed like a desperate plea for help has unraveled into a disturbing web of lies and deception. Rebecca's initial claim that her son was kidnapped, attacked, and knocked unconscious in a parking lot was later contradicted by police findings. Blood stains in the Haro home raised alarms, and the story began to crumble. Both parents stopped cooperating with investigators, further deepening the mystery. But what's even more troubling is the emotional detachment. How could parents, whose child was just taken from them, act with such coldness? Their refusal to take polygraph tests, their hesitation to cooperate, these actions speak volumes. Why wouldn't they do everything in their power to help the investigation? With each passing day, the investigation expands. New evidence is being uncovered, but still, the mystery of Emmanuel's whereabouts remains unsolved. Investigators are now focusing on various leads, including the bizarre behavior of the Haros and the new leads provided by the public. From the blood found at the Haro home to Ahmed Bello's tip-off about the sanctuary church, authorities are piecing together the final pieces of this puzzle. But with every discovery, more questions arise. What does it all mean? And where is Emmanuel? As the investigation continues to unfold, one thing is clear. The system failed Emmanuel. The neglect and abuse that led to his tragic fate didn't start with his disappearance. It started much earlier. How did authorities miss the Warning signs? Why wasn't this family investigated before, after Jake's criminal history and the signs of potential abuse? When Jake was arrested in 2018 for child cruelty after nearly killing his own daughter, why wasn't more done to protect Emmanuel and his siblings? The system allowed these children to grow up in a home that was clearly unsafe, and now the consequences are devastating. The road to justice, what's next? But even in the darkest of times, there is hope. Justice for Emmanuel is still possible, and with the continued investigation, the truth is inching closer to the surface. Each tip, each new lead, brings us closer to understanding what really happened. The fight for justice is far from over. This isn't just a case about one child. It's about ensuring that no child ever suffers in silence again. It's about holding those responsible accountable for their actions. And it's about making sure the truth never stays buried. As we continue to seek justice for baby Emmanuel, we ask you to join us in the search for answers. If you have any information, please reach out. Your voice could make all the difference. Together, we can make sure that Emmanuel's story doesn't fade into the shadows. Together, we can bring him home, or at least bring justice to his memory. Asterisk. As the investigation unfolds, shocking new revelations emerge, unraveling more than anyone could have expected. With the Haro case growing colder by the day, investigators have stumbled upon new pieces of the puzzle that make it even harder to ignore the dark past of Jake Haro and his family. But these discoveries raise even more questions than answers. What has been hidden from the public? And what does this mean for Emmanuel's fate? In the days following Jake and Rebecca's arrest, detectives have uncovered hidden truths that point to a long history of deception and a deeply troubling pattern of behavior. The investigation has expanded beyond the confines of the Haro home, reaching into Jake's troubled past and uncovering a chilling connection to another death. Jake's dark history isn't just a coincidence. In 2018, he was convicted of child cruelty after nearly killing his infant daughter. Despite the severity of the crime, Jake faced only a slap on the wrist, serving just 1 day in jail. How could the system fail so badly to allow this man to continue harming children? And how many other children suffered because of this oversight? This tragic case isn't just about a family's betrayal. It's about a system that failed to protect its most vulnerable. How could authorities let Jake, a convicted child abuser, keep custody of his children after his prior conviction? How did Child Protective Services fail to act, despite the clear risk to Emmanuel and his siblings? The Haro case isn't isolated. It's part of a larger pattern of neglect, where the system repeatedly overlooks the signs of abuse. The failures of law enforcement and child protective agencies have left countless children vulnerable to horrific abuse, and the results can be deadly. But in the midst of this chaos, there is still hope. New leads are emerging from unlikely sources, witnesses, tipsters, and even social media users who are playing an unexpected role in the case. Could these fresh revelations hold the key to finding Emmanuel's body? And could they finally break the case wide open? Enter Ahmed Bello, a TikToker whose relentless pursuit of the truth led to a major breakthrough. Ahmed uncovered a significant lead at the Sanctuary Church in Ukipa, where Rebecca and Jake were spotted on surveillance footage, pushing a stroller late at night. What were they doing at the church? Was this the place where Emmanuel's body was disposed of? Ahmed's footage ignited a chain reaction, prompting law enforcement to investigate the site. Could this seemingly innocent location hold the grim truth? Was it here, hidden in plain sight, that the story of Emmanuel's disappearance would come to its heartbreaking end? Every lead brings us closer to the truth, but we still don't have all the answers. Where is Emmanuel's body? Could he have been hidden all this time, somewhere close by, just waiting to be discovered? The investigation is at a standstill, and with each day that passes, the answers seem farther out of reach. Time is running out, and the hope of finding Emmanuel alive continues to fade. What happened to this innocent child? Was he a victim of his own parents' negligence and cruelty? Or was there more to the story, a conspiracy too dark to comprehend? As the investigation continues, the community of Cabazon is left grappling with a tragic reality. How do you cope when a child is taken from you? How do you deal with the knowledge that 2 lives have been lost in the same home within a span of a few short years? The residents of this small town are heartbroken. They can't understand how someone could harm a child so young, a child who had so much life left to live. As they gather in vigils, they hold on to one hope, the hope that justice will be served and that Emmanuel's story will not be forgotten. This isn't just about finding Emmanuel, it's about ensuring that justice is served. It's about making sure that no other child suffers at the hands of those who are supposed to protect them. We need your help. If you have any information, no matter how small, please come forward. Your voice could be the one that changes everything. Together, we can make sure that Emmanuel's death is not in vain. We can make sure that his story is told and that the truth comes to light. Please share this video, spread the word, and help us find the justice Emmanuel deserves. As the search for baby Emmanuel Haro's body enters its critical stage, every lead counts. But as investigators continue to dig deeper into the case, shocking new discoveries surface, things no one could have predicted. What are the authorities really uncovering in their search? And what do these new findings mean for the investigation? Search teams are now fanning out in ever-widening circles, with helicopters and search dogs covering ground in search of any trace of Emmanuel. But the disturbing reality is that they're not just searching for the child, they're searching for the answers to questions that no one has been able to answer. Authorities have recently expanded their focus beyond the Haro home, turning their attention to other areas where Emmanuel may have been hidden. From abandoned lots to nearby wooded areas and even bodies of water, no place is off limits. But what are they really looking for? What have they already uncovered in their pursuit of justice? In a truly unexpected turn of events, a new lead has emerged, thanks to the relentless pursuit of social media investigators. TikTok user Ahmed Bello uncovered surveillance footage showing Jake and Rebecca Haro near the sanctuary church in Ukipa just days before Emmanuel went missing. Could this seemingly innocent church hold the key to solving the mystery of Emmanuel's disappearance? Ahmed's tip led to investigators visiting the sanctuary church, a quiet and peaceful location in Ukipa. But there's something deeply unsettling about this tip. What were Jake and Rebecca doing there? Why were they pushing a black stroller late at night on the property? Was this where they disposed of Emmanuel's body? Or is there something more sinister at play? The area around the church is vast-filled, with thick tree lines, containers, and secluded spots. Was this the place where Emmanuel's body was hidden? And could this innocuous location be linked to the tragic fate of a child whose life was stolen too soon? As the investigation continues to unravel, a dark history of abuse and tragedy emerges from the depths of the Haro family. Jake Haro's criminal past isn't just something to be brushed aside. It's a key piece of the puzzle that could explain the horrifying fate of Emmanuel. Jake's history is filled with haunting instances of violence and abuse. In 2018, he was convicted of child cruelty after his daughter Promise suffered life-threatening injuries. Despite the severity of the crime, Jake was given a mere slap on the wrist, serving only 1 day in jail. How could this man, with such a violent and disturbing history, continue to have access to children? Promise Haro, now living with permanent injuries, remains a tragic reminder of how Jake Haro was allowed to evade justice. How many more children were at risk in the face of such negligence? And why was Emmanuel, another innocent child, allowed to live under the same roof as a convicted abuser? The community of Cabazon is in shock, their hearts broken for a child they barely knew but felt connected to. How does a small town cope when the most unimaginable tragedy strikes? How does one even begin to heal from such a loss? The people of this town demand justice for Emmanuel, for Promise, and for all the children who are vulnerable to abuse. Vigils have been held in Emmanuel's name, each candle lighting up the night as a symbol of the collective grief this community feels. They have come together to demand justice, to seek closure, and to ensure that Emmanuel's story is never forgotten. The fight for justice is far from over. It's only just beginning. The search for Emmanuel continues, but the pursuit of justice has only just begun. With the Haro parents in custody, questions remain unanswered, and the search for Emmanuel's body grows ever more urgent. What really happened to this innocent child? And what dark truths still lie hidden? But the truth can't stay buried forever. With every passing day, the story of Emmanuel Haro gets closer to being told, and justice is within reach. But we need your help. If you know anything at all, about the events surrounding Emmanuel's disappearance, speak up. This is not just a story about a missing child, it's about ensuring that the truth comes to light and that justice is served for a life that was taken too soon. Asterisk. The arrest of Jake and Rebecca Haro sent shockwaves through the community. What seemed like a routine investigation into a missing child case quickly spiraled into something much darker. But what led to their shocking arrests? And why are authorities so certain of their involvement in the tragic death of their son Emmanuel? On August 22, 2025, deputies descended on the Haro home in a dramatic SWAT operation. Both parents were arrested on charges of murder, and the weight of their crimes seemed clear. But even as they were led away in handcuffs, a chilling detail hung in the air: baby Emmanuel's body was still missing. Rebecca's story of a kidnapping that occurred in a parking lot crumbled under the weight of the investigation. The blood-stained carpets in the Haro home told a different story, and as authorities pieced together the facts, it became increasingly clear that this wasn't a case of a random kidnapping. It was something far more sinister. But despite the damning evidence, one question still remains. What happened to Emmanuel's body? And why, after all this time, has it never been found? The search for his remains continues, but as each day passes, the mystery deepens. As the investigation into Emmanuel's death unfolds, a disturbing pattern emerges. The Haro family history is steeped in darkness, with secrets buried deep beneath the surface. Jake Haro, already known for his violent past, seems to have been hiding far more than anyone could have imagined. In 2018, Jake was convicted of felony child cruelty after his 10-week-old daughter, Promise, was found with severe injuries: fractured ribs, a skull fracture, and brain hemorrhages. Yet despite the severity of the injuries, Jake served only 1 day in jail, sparking outrage in the community. How could a man with such a violent history be allowed to have custody of another child? Promise's life was forever changed by the abuse she suffered. Now another child, Emmanuel, is dead, and Jake Haro's violent history seems to have come full circle. But why were these children allowed to live under the same roof as their abuser? The entire community of Cabazon has been rocked to its core by the events surrounding Emmanuel's death. Families, parents, and community members are left grappling with the harsh reality of what has happened and the pain of knowing that this child's life was taken so brutally. Vigils have been held in Emmanuel's honor, and the community has come together to demand justice for the 7-month-old boy whose life was stolen too soon. As parents and loved ones gather, they continue to grieve the loss of a child they never had the chance to know. But they also remain hopeful that justice will prevail. This tragedy has touched so many. It's hard to imagine the pain the Haro family's actions have caused the community, and especially the other children who are left behind, like Promise. This is not just a case of a missing child. It's a stark reminder of the impact of violence on families and the desperate need for justice. The search for Emmanuel's remains continues, but the fight for justice is far from over. With both Jake and Rebecca behind bars, the case is far from being closed. But there are still more questions to answer and more pieces of the puzzle to uncover. As detectives dig deeper into the Haro family's past and as new leads surface, the community stands firm in its demand for answers. What really happened to Emmanuel? Was he killed in the same way his sister was nearly killed before him? And what else will be uncovered in the coming weeks and months? The truth cannot be hidden forever. If you know anything at all that could help solve this case, speak up. Justice for Emmanuel is not just a fight for one child. It's a fight for all those who can no longer speak for themselves. Asterisk, the case of Emmanuel Haro may not have a clear ending yet, but the fight for truth continues. With every lead, every revelation, the story grows more chilling and more important. Emmanuel may no longer be with us, but his voice is far from silent. This is far from over. As long as there are questions left to answer, the fight for justice will never stop. Emmanuel Haro deserves that, and so do we all. As the days pass, new leads continue to emerge, and with each new revelation, the mystery of what happened to Emmanuel deepens. Authorities are working tirelessly, piecing together the fragments of a case that grows more complex by the hour. But even as the search continues, unsettling truths about the Haro family come to light, casting shadows over everything. The search for Emmanuel's remains has expanded to new locations, desperate measures in an effort to find the missing baby. Just days ago, investigators were seen at a nearby church, following up on an anonymous tip that led them to a possible burial site. But did this tip hold the key to unlocking the mystery? Or was it another dead end? As investigators examine every possible location, including the sanctuary church in Ukipa, the haunting question remains: is Emmanuel's body hidden here? Could this be the place where his life was cruelly taken from him? Or is it just another false lead? The plot thickens as the case takes another chilling turn. The discovery of blood in the Haro home, along with the disappearance of baby Emmanuel, isn't the first tragedy to strike the family. The same home is linked to a death that occurred years earlier: Jake Haro's brother, Hector Haro. Hector Haro was found dead in the Haro family home on May 6, 2021. His death was initially labeled as an overdose or possibly self-harm. But unanswered questions and whispers of foul play continue to surround his passing. Why was Hector in the same house where Emmanuel's life would eventually end? And why wasn't there a more thorough investigation into Hector's death? Despite the suspicions, no charges were filed in Hector's case, and the family quickly moved on, even setting up a GoFundMe for his funeral. But was this death truly just an accident? Or was it part of a larger, more disturbing pattern that authorities missed the first time? To understand the full scope of the tragedy, we must look deeper into the family's past. Jake Haro's criminal history paints a terrifying picture. In 2018, Jake was convicted of child cruelty after his young daughter, Promise, was found with serious life-threatening injuries. A fractured skull, brain hemorrhages, broken ribs, yet despite the severity of these injuries, Jake was sentenced to just 1 day in jail. How could such a violent individual have been allowed to raise another child? How could the system fail so badly? A man with a violent history, who nearly killed his own daughter, was allowed to continue living with his children. And now Emmanuel is dead. Was the system's failure to protect him the final blow in a series of missteps? The community demands answers. As detectives uncovered more about the Haro family, one detail stood out above the rest: an unsettling act of erasure. When investigators combed through the Haro home, They discovered that all of Emmanuel's clothes had been thrown away, and all photographs of him had vanished. This wasn't just a case of neglect, this was deliberate. A calculated attempt to erase Emmanuel's existence from the family's history. Why would a mother and father, in the midst of claiming their child's abduction, remove every trace of him from their home? Is this the final step in their cover-up? Or is there something even darker at play here? It's a haunting detail that speaks volumes about the lengths these parents went to in order to conceal the truth. The fight for justice is far from over. As the search for Emmanuel's remains continues, the community stands united, demanding answers. Families across the Inland Empire are outraged, struggling to come to terms with the horror that has unfolded in their own backyard. But as investigators sift through every clue, the question remains, will Emmanuel get the justice he deserves? Vigils have been held in memory of Emmanuel, as the community unites to demand justice for the 7-month-old boy whose life was stolen too soon. It's a call for accountability, a fight for the innocent victims who cannot speak for themselves. The search for the truth is not just about finding Emmanuel's body, it's about holding those responsible accountable for their actions. As the investigation continues, the community waits with bated breath for closure. The pieces of this tragic puzzle are slowly coming together, but the truth remains elusive. What really happened to Emmanuel? Who else may be involved in this dark family saga? And will the justice system finally deliver the answers the community so desperately needs? The search for answers is not over. As long as there are questions, the fight for justice will continue. Emmanuel's story is far from finished, and neither is the fight to make sure his death is not in vain. We owe it to him to uncover the truth and seek the justice he deserves. Asterisk. As the investigation moves forward, it's not just about finding out what happened to baby Emmanuel Haro. It's about unraveling the darkness that has plagued the Haro family. New details have emerged, and with each passing day, the truth gets harder to ignore. What exactly happened in that house? Was it a tragedy that could have been prevented, or is there something far more sinister at play? With each new lead, we see that nothing in this case is as it seems. From a late-night sighting at a local church to blood-stained carpets in the home, it's clear that the Haro family has been hiding more than just secrets. The investigation into the disappearances is no longer just about Emmanuel. It's about exposing the web of lies and deceit that have surrounded this family. For years, it's difficult to ignore the question, how did authorities miss the warning signs earlier? The history of abuse, the death of Hector Haro in the same house, and the disturbing signs of neglect and violence all pointed to a far more complicated story than anyone initially realized. And yet, for years these signs went unnoticed, the deaths unexamined. Authorities first focused their efforts on the abduction claim made by Rebecca Haro, but soon, investigators realized that her story didn't add up. Why would a mother claim a stranger took her child, only to stop cooperating when the truth was questioned? And why, in the case of Hector Haro, did his death go largely unexplored, leaving an entire family to live with their secrets unchallenged? As the investigation into Emmanuel's death uncovers these hidden truths, it becomes clear that there's more to this family's story than anyone first thought. Will justice finally be served? Or will these unanswered questions continue to haunt the community and the lives of those involved? To understand the scope of the tragedy, we must look at the dark past of Jake Haro, the man who is now at the center of this investigation. In 2018, Jake was involved in a horrifying case of child abuse that left his young daughter, Promise, with permanent brain damage. How could someone with a violent history be allowed to remain around children, let alone father more? Jake Haro was given a slap on the wrist for the near death of his own child, just 1 day in jail for crimes that should have led to far more severe consequences. And now we are left asking, could this have been prevented? Could the tragedy of Emmanuel's death have been stopped if the system had acted sooner? These are the questions that the community is now demanding answers to. As the search for Emmanuel continues, there's a sense of desperation in the air. His parents, Jake and Rebecca Haro, are now behind bars, facing charges for his murder. But the baby's body remains missing, a haunting void that keeps the investigation from reaching its conclusion. With every new clue, the hope for closure grows, but will Emmanuel's remains ever be found? Authorities are not giving up. The search is relentless as detectives scour every inch of possible locations where Emmanuel's remains may be hidden. Yet, with each passing day, the case grows more complex, and the evidence becomes harder to piece together. The family's dark history, combined with the mystery of Emmanuel's disappearance, has left the community in shock and disbelief. In the face of such tragedy, the community has come together. Vigils, rallies, and protests have been held as people demand justice for Emmanuel. The outpouring of support for the baby and his memory has been overwhelming, with the community standing firm in its resolve to find answers. The calls for justice have only grown louder, and the community's dedication to uncovering the truth has sparked a sense of unity among strangers, families, and advocates alike. It's clear that the fight for justice for Emmanuel is far from over. His story is being heard, his life is being remembered, and his legacy will live on through the people who refuse to forget him. The road to uncovering the truth is a long and painful one. With each revelation, the story of Emmanuel Haro becomes more tragic and complicated. What really happened to this innocent child? Was his death the result of a twisted series of events, or is there something more sinister at play? As the investigation continues, we may never fully understand the depth of the darkness that surrounded Emmanuel's life. But one thing is clear: the fight for justice will continue. Emmanuel's story has touched the hearts of many, and his memory will live on no matter where the truth leads. As the investigation deepens, new revelations start to emerge, each one darker than the last. The search for baby Emmanuel's remains continues, but as authorities dig into the family's history, the truth becomes more elusive. Was Emmanuel's disappearance a tragic accident, or is there something far more sinister at play? The first break came when investigators found blood-soaked carpets in the Haro household. Forensic teams quickly analyzed the bloodstains, which authorities believed to be Emmanuel's. With no sign of the baby and no valid leads, the truth about what really happened inside that home became even more clouded. Was this a tragic accident, or were Jake and Rebecca Haro hiding a far darker reality? The question of murder looms large, and the more investigators uncover, the more twisted the story becomes. From the inconsistencies in Rebecca's story to the strange behaviors of the parents, everything pointed to a horrifying cover-up. Why did they stop cooperating with investigators? Why did they refuse to take polygraph tests, leaving even more questions unanswered? The situation was beginning to feel like a well-executed plot, one that they never expected to unravel. Just when authorities thought they had all the answers, another twist emerged: Jake Haro's troubled past. In 2018, Jake had faced felony child cruelty charges after his 10-week-old daughter suffered horrific injuries. The chilling reality of his past casts a long shadow over this case, raising the possibility that his history of violence might have led to Emmanuel's tragic fate. Why was Jake allowed to continue raising children after such a violent past? How could Child Protective Services have missed the warning signs? Questions pile up, and the shocking pattern of tragedy in the Haro family becomes impossible to ignore. As the investigation moves forward, one thing is clear: there are no easy answers. The search for Emmanuel's body continues, but what investigators may find could be far worse than anyone imagined. Asterisk. As more and more secrets come to light, the image of the Haro family begins to crumble. What started as a seemingly innocent, tragic event has now become a deep dive into the disturbing truths behind the closed doors of 508 Ramona Street. How did a family, once united by love, fall so far into darkness? Authorities aren't just uncovering clues about Emmanuel's death, they're also revealing a family history steeped in turmoil, deception, and hidden violence. It turns out, the Haros weren't strangers to tragedy or secrets. But the questions pile up. How deep did these secrets run? And who else knew what was really going on? Neighbors are stunned by the arrest. Everyone had their own idea of the Haro family, but no one could have predicted what lay beneath the surface. Jake Haro's own brother, Hector, had died in the same house years earlier. Was there a connection between the two deaths? Or was it just a coincidence? Hector Haro's death in 2021 raised alarm bells in the community, but no one connected it to the tragedy unfolding now. Officially, Hector's death was ruled as an overdose or self-harm, but some say the truth was hidden. The family quickly moved on, launching a GoFundMe for Hector's funeral and continuing with their lives. But a closer look at the circumstances surrounding Hector's death and the eerie similarities between both tragedies raises uncomfortable questions. Why was Hector in Jake's house that night? Why was the cause of his death never fully confirmed? And why does the same address, the same home, seem to be a place where tragedy and loss follow one after the other? These aren't just coincidences, they're patterns that demand answers. As the truth begins to unfold, we're left with more questions than answers. Were both deaths a result of some dark family secret, or were they the work of something far more sinister? The pieces of the puzzle are falling into place, but the answers still seem out of reach. Investigators are now combing through the Haro family's past, searching for connections, hidden motives, and the untold truths. But in doing so, they uncover something far more unsettling. A case that began as a missing baby report now reveals a chilling pattern, one that connects the dots between the Haro's troubled past and the disappearance of Emmanuel. As authorities delve into the timeline of events, they make a startling discovery. A house with no shortage of secrets. Blood-soaked carpets and missing items suggest that there's far more to Emmanuel's disappearance than anyone imagined. Was it a crime of passion? A long-gestating plan? Or is there something darker at play? On August 22, 2025, Jake and Rebecca Haro were arrested for the murder of their son. But the arrest wasn't the only shocking revelation. Investigators found bloodstains throughout the home, soaked into the carpets, proof that Emmanuel's life was cut short within these walls. But even more shocking? The fact that his body has yet to be found. Despite the mounting evidence, the body of Emmanuel Haro remains missing. How could such a young child simply vanish without a trace? What lengths did Jake and Rebecca go to in order to cover their tracks? And why, after all this time, has no one been able to piece together the full story of his disappearance? Every piece of evidence found in that house only deepens the mystery. The family's lies seem more carefully crafted with every passing moment. From Rebecca's inconsistent kidnapping story to the strange circumstances surrounding the deaths of two people in the same house, this isn't just a case of a missing child. It's a horrifying tale of hidden motives, cover-ups, and unspoken truths. As the search for Emmanuel's body continues, the questions become impossible to ignore. Was his death planned? Or was it an accident? And how far are Jake and Rebecca willing to go to protect their dark secrets? Meanwhile, the community is left grappling with the grief of a child gone too soon. As they hold vigils and pray for answers, one thing is clear: there are far more secrets in the Haro family's past than anyone could have imagined. The investigation into Emmanuel's death takes an even more disturbing turn as detectives uncover a connection that no one could have predicted. Two deaths, one house, and a pattern that seems impossible to ignore. The focus now shifts to Jake Haro's brother, Hector Haro, who died under mysterious circumstances in the same house, just 4 years before Emmanuel's tragic end. Hector Haro's death, ruled an overdose or possible self-harm, had always raised eyebrows in the community. But authorities had closed the case quickly. No charges, no further investigation. Yet now, with Emmanuel's death, that decision begins to look like a tragic oversight. Was Hector's death truly an accident? Or was something far darker at play in the same home that would soon witness another loss of life? Hector, Jake's brother, was found dead in the Haro family's home on May 6, 2021. The cause of death was initially unclear, but rumors began to swirl about foul play. Was it an overdose? Or was Hector's death tied to something much more sinister, something that had been simmering in the shadows for years? Even more unsettling is the fact that no one ever fully questioned the circumstances of Hector's death. His family quickly moved on, holding a fundraiser for his funeral and publicly mourning his loss. But what if Hector's death was just the beginning? What if it was the first piece of a dark and twisted puzzle that no one had bothered to solve? The pieces of this puzzle don't fit. The same house, 2 deaths. And now, investigators are asking, could the death of Hector Haro be connected to the death of his nephew Emmanuel? Was there something in that house that led to both of their untimely deaths? And if so, who was truly responsible? As detectives connect the dots between these 2 deaths, they're left with more questions than answers. What really happened to Hector Haro? And how is his death connected to the tragic fate of his young nephew, Emmanuel? As the days go by, new leads emerge, and the pressure mounts. We've seen how the family has tried to cover their tracks, but with every turn, another piece of the puzzle falls into place. On August 14, 2025, the day Rebecca reported Emmanuel missing, she claimed that someone had attacked her and kidnapped her baby from a parking lot. But soon after, holes began appearing in her story. Blood-soaked carpets found in the Haro home raised even more doubts about her claims. Authorities uncovered bloodstains in the carpet that led them to believe Emmanuel's life was taken inside the very home that was supposed to be his safe place. While his body remained missing, the disturbing realization was clear. Emmanuel's life was stolen in the place where he should have been protected. The blood was real, and it told a story of violence and a calculated cover-up. But this is just the beginning of the twisted truth. Detective after detective began to piece together more from their investigation. Why was Rebecca's story unraveling so quickly? And why did Jake refuse to cooperate? Was this a failed attempt to mislead authorities, or was it something far darker? And then came Jake Haro's criminal history, which painted a chilling picture of his capacity for violence. What was once buried in the past now resurfaces. Jake had been involved in a similar case before, with allegations of child cruelty linked to a daughter who was severely harmed. How could authorities not have seen the warning signs? Was there enough suspicion back then to stop this tragedy before it happened? Now, with Jake and Rebecca arrested, the case takes a chilling turn. New leads surface, each more disturbing than the last. And as the search for Emmanuel continues, the police are left with a question: where is his body? But more importantly, what really happened inside that house? Were both deaths tied to the same tragic pattern of abuse? As the investigation unfolds, a haunting pattern begins to emerge: 2 deaths, 1 house. The Haro home, once seen as a place of normalcy, now stands as a dark monument to a family's tragic history. Jake Haro's brother, Hector, was found dead in the same house just 4 years earlier, adding another layer of mystery to this already disturbing case. On May 6, 2021, Hector Haro's body was discovered under suspicious circumstances. Authorities initially called it an overdose or possibly self-harm, but questions swirled. Why was Hector in Jake's home that night? And why was the cause of his death never fully confirmed? Was it really an accident, or could it have been something far darker? Was this the beginning of a tragic pattern that no one saw coming? Despite the oddities surrounding Hector's death, no charges were filed. The family moved on quickly, even launching a GoFundMe campaign for Hector's funeral. But now, with Emmanuel's murder investigation, it's clear that something more sinister was at play. Were the same forces at work in both deaths? Could there be a connection between these two lives lost in the same place? The tragic deaths of two family members in the same house. This isn't just a coincidence. Blood-soaked carpets and missing children point to a disturbing truth. Was there something more to Hector's death? The eerie connection between his passing and Emmanuel's disappearance might not be random after all. And if this is a pattern, could the authorities have prevented it? Investigators are now forced to look at the bigger picture, wondering, could the Haro family be hiding something far darker than anyone could have imagined? The question lingers, was Hector's death part of a larger, hidden truth? Asterisk. As the case spirals deeper into darkness, the search for Emmanuel continues. Deputies and detectives comb through every inch of the Haro family home, and yet, despite their best efforts, they come up empty-handed. Emmanuel's body is still missing, but the clues they have uncovered raise more questions than they answer. The blood-stained carpet tells its own horrific story, pointing to a tragedy that unfolded right within the walls of a family's home. The pressure is mounting, and the clock is ticking. With every new piece of evidence, the case only becomes more chilling. How did Jake and Rebecca Haro keep up the ruse of their son's disappearance for so long? What secrets are buried deep within the walls of that house? The more investigators search, the more it becomes clear that Emmanuel's disappearance is part of something much darker. As the search efforts spread beyond the Haro home, new leads begin to surface. A TikTok user named Ahmed Bello, relentless in his investigation, uncovers a potential site for Emmanuel's body, a remote area behind a church in Ukipa, California. Ahmed's footage shows Rebecca Haro pushing a stroller late at night near the church, leading investigators to believe that this could be the key to finding Emmanuel's remains. But the search at the church site also leads to more unanswered questions. Why was Rebecca there, at midnight, in the dark, with a stroller? What were Jake and Rebecca trying to hide? As deputies rush to the location, fresh dirt and disturbing evidence are discovered, further cementing the possibility that Emmanuel's body is somewhere close, but still nothing conclusive. With every lead, the case tightens, but still, the truth evades discovery. As the investigation continues, the pain of Emmanuel's disappearance resonates deeply within the local community. Ukipa, a place that once seemed like any other small town, now bears the heavy burden of tragedy. People from all walks of life, connected only by their hope for justice, gather in vigils and protests, demanding answers for the baby who had no voice. Parents, grandparents, and even strangers all come together, united in grief for a child they never knew, but still felt the loss of. The faces of concerned citizens shine with the same burning question: how could anyone harm a child so innocent? How could a family, meant to protect, end up causing such devastation? The community's cries are loud, their hope dimming as each day passes without answers. A mother of two, attending the vigil, speaks with a heavy heart. "We just want answers." I can't imagine the pain the parents are going through, but at the same time, how could something like this happen? It's a question that haunts the residents of Ukipa as they struggle to come to terms with the tragedy that unfolded in their town. Every vigil, every tear shed, every candle lit is a testament to the heartbreak and longing for answers. The community may have lost their sense of peace, but one thing remains: the fight for justice. They will not rest until Emmanuel's story is told, and the truth of what happened inside that house is brought to light. As the case unfolds, it becomes painfully clear that the Haro family is hiding something. The shocking discovery of blood in the home, combined with the erratic behavior of Jake and Rebecca, suggests that they knew far more than they let on. From the very start, they were not cooperating with investigators, refusing lie detector tests, withholding crucial information, and even stopping their cooperation altogether. At first, the story seemed plausible, Rebecca's desperate plea for help, claiming her baby was kidnapped from a parking lot. But the inconsistencies piled up quickly. Rebecca's black eye, which couldn't have formed that fast. The absence of any physical evidence supporting her version of the kidnapping. And the unsettling realization that both Jake and Rebecca's alibis were full of holes. Was this a mother's anguish, or something far more sinister? Authorities quickly honed in on Jake's history, his previous involvement in a child cruelty case that nearly left another child permanently harmed. Could his past actions have led to the tragic fate of Emmanuel? And why was Rebecca so adamant about maintaining a false narrative, even when all signs pointed to a darker truth? The pieces of the puzzle were slowly falling into place, but the full picture was still obscured by layers of deception. The lies, the cover-ups, and the shattered truths, each new detail leaves more questions than answers. But one thing is certain, Jake and Rebecca Haro are far from innocent. And the more investigators dig, the more it becomes clear that the tragedy in Ukipa is a story of betrayal, lies, and unthinkable actions.